Welcome to the Good Ride. We're pouring for snowboard gear. So here is the Good Ride review of the 2019 Union Atlas. And I'm trying something new this year. Instead of doing an on the table review too, just taking the binding off and kind of showing you everything, because it feels like there's a little more overlap than when I do the boards. So hopefully this will work. But here's the thing. The Atlas has evolved. Here's the old ankle strap, now the team strap, and I love this one. It's just that nice balance of comfort, freedom of movement, and support. Then they upgraded to this. This was a bit of a thick beast. I loved the support at first, but depending on my boot, sometimes this could cause pressure points. It's still a great ankle strap, but then they evolved to this, and you can kind of see how it just keeps going up in size. And I think I have a picture of all three straps, but this just like takes a actually it's I brought the wrong one, but it's more like this. You can see where this ends. This side is narrower versus this side being wider. So like they kind of changed the where it's gives the most support when they move to this, and then they kind of just like this one just has, it's just a massive improvement in surface area with you know, 18 versus 19, and it's just like they're both pretty light. I would imagine this to be a little lighter. I didn't put either one on the scale, but it's got this like really wide supportive, here, I'm done with that, just, you know, grip, and it didn't feel like it was grabbing too much. Did you feel any pressure points? Or
no? I'm always cautious not to over tighten Union and any straps.
Any straps.
I have a habit of just over tightening things, but yeah, I thought there are no pressure points with either of these straps for me.
Yeah,
either of these two. That one's a different story.
That one gave me pressure points.
Yeah.
If I had to be really careful, and it depended on the boot. Like my Adidas tactical ADVs that I rode these Atlas with, and by the way, yeah, and you rode your Burton SLXs, and then we compared these to the old Atlas versus the new Atlas, and we rode them on the BSOD and the Capita, Mercury and the Jones Mountain Twin today, and you know, really just kind of played around with, you know, with Atlases all day today. And so it was noticeable when I got on this, and it was cool because it doesn't feel as hard. And I think over time, when you ride this, I think this is gonna soften up and break down a little bit. Don't you? Yeah. Maybe it's like a kind of plastic that doesn't, but I hope it does. And I was just surprised at how much it wrapped around the boot. It almost felt like it was too much wrap. Right. But it felt good. I liked it, and I could definitely ride with these straps. I still think I might. I'm just so used to this team strap. I need a little more time on this, but I'm so used to this team strap that I just love it. And I put this on all my bindings. Like I have like 4 Union Atlas right now, maybe 5 or 6. And they all have the team I might have 5 or 6 by the time you're watching this. At the time right now I have 4 or 5. And then I have the Super Pros, which are basically contact pros with team high backs and team straps. And I put the team straps on those, and they had this guy. And you know, these are definitely 2 of my favorite straps. And I love to see how Union straps are evolving. Everything else about this binding is the same. Same great high back that just has a nice twist to it, a little give, you know, but so it's responsive. The base plate is super responsive, but it doesn't bite into my calves. And what I love about these bindings is the adjustability and the stance width adjustability, and those are 2 different things. The stance width, you can see this disc, it isn't divided here. you can see, you can slide them close together and mount it like a mini disc if you want, or slide it out and mount it like a regular disc. So I can always find my stance width on a traditional 4-hole board. And then if you want to do the 2-hole with Burton, the EST, it's just right there. You don't have to change out discs. It's a great way to not waste materials. And then looking at this base plate, basically it's just this disc right here is the contact with the board. Everything else is kind of like hollowed out. This is just a nice light material. There's EVA foam on the sides. It's very minimized. So the feel under the board is pretty good. They're very responsive for how mellow and twisty the high back is. The base plate is very responsive, and I love that. It's been in their line for a long time. And then when you're talking about adjustability up top, it's one of the best bindings I've tried to dial out to my actual boot size, because you can slide the heel cup in and out. You can tighten these. There's a screw here and a screw here. So you can slide the heel cup in and out, and then you can slide this toe ramp in and out. So it fits a boot better than almost any other board. Like if you compare these are like, this is like their flagship, their middle ground. They're all mountain. They're kind of do everything binding. And this is kind of like the equivalent of the Cartel to Burton. And the Cartel just has this one toe ramp. So if you're one of those people who's like a size 10.5 or an 11, you know, so you're kind of in between medium and large bindings, you have a better chance of each size fitting you better. So like, for example, like if you're a 10.5, I'd go with their medium, especially if you have a reduced footprint, 10.5 boot. Boot footprint sizes are all different. But if you're like Adidas, Burton, you know, Vans to a lesser extent.
I'm an 11, and I prefer the medium in Union, even though that contradicts their size chart.
Yes, but you have a reduced footprint.
It is reduced footprint.
Burton
yeah.
SLX.
Yep.
And you need to slide the heel loop all the way out.
Yep, that's true.
And the toe ramp all the way out, but it fits almost perfect.
Yeah.
And I always find myself with my friends who are those 10.5, 11s, the large Burtons Cartels don't fit as well, and the mediums don't fit as well.
Right.
Because these have just more adjustability. And what I love, this is just kind of a random thing, but why I love Union bindings so much, it's not the tool list adjustability here. That's nice, but they're more adjustable, easier adjustable bindings, is that I can just pop this down with the bindings on and just I ride it. And then I pop these up and pop these up like this, and then Grant rides it.
Can't do that with Burtons. You gotta take the binding. The binding does the
Yeah.
same thing, but you've got to unmount the binding from the board for that to happen.
And that's not something for many people, because
right.
not everybody's gear whoring and switching and riding and riding and riding. My one complaint is this toe ramp has just a screw, and the screw can pop out at like any time. You know,
Yeah.
It's like Archer. Like, here's this
Gone.
pin, it can kill you if you hit this button, and it like literally goes off at any time. So just put that in your pocket. You know, it's like, what? But it can literally fall out at any time, and it bothers me. I'd love to see them put a little washer, just like a little tiny piece in there that allows you to just make sure this doesn't come off. So you can pull these off and kind of throw them off to the side. It would make changing, adjusting your stance. You know, a lot of people like to set up a binding on a board like this and then set it, you know, keep it centered for groomers, or like that, like the, you know, the Mercury. Keep it centered on groomers and then set it back on powder. So when you're constantly taking this toe ramp on and off to do that on powder days and groomer days, I'd love for this screw to just know it's not going anywhere. Now, the shock absorption's amazing. Oh, one last thing with the adjustability. You can do two things with this. See these holes here? You don't have these on like Union Falcors or other bindings that have like way more carbon fiber in the high back. You have 3 holes here. So you can, even though this is pretty twisty and it's not as necessary to rotate your high backs, you can do it that way. I have found that this does kind of like bend out a little bit, and it can like, you know, kind of like grind away at your boot. But it's definitely like, some complain about it like twisting in and kind of like tearing on your boot, like causing wear there on both sides. But sometimes it doesn't do it at all. It just depends on your boot and what you have there. Or you can do like what I often do, is I slide the heel loop out on one side and in on the other, and then I get a high back rotation that way, and then adjust the toe ramp accordingly. But ratchets, smoothest, super smooth ratchets. They're just as smooth as Burton or anybody else out there. I think they're like my favorite ratchets, and they've come a long way over the years. They're just so easy on and off, and I love this little thing here. It's just like, you just like that, like, you know, and I can one-hand it on, and it's the same up here. It's just nice and smooth on and off, and I love it. They never come undone. They always grip. I think if I can get it right here, I feel like I'm a kid again. Where's that hole? But the toe over the toe grip here is amazing. It looks so simple. It looks old school. You can put it up over the top if that's how you choose to be, or you can bring it all the way forward and just wrap it over your toe. And this rubber is just so nice and grippy, and it stretches a little bit, and I think it's like literally one of the best you know, toe straps I've ever been involved with. And
rarely comes off, if ever.
Yeah. And if I line it up on a little bit of the, like the top part of the rubber on my boot, fucked up hips. But that top part of the rubber on my boot, if this rubber hits that, it like almost never comes undone, even if I'm totally dragging my toe on a carve. So I love that. But all in all, shock absorption, there's an auto cant, not an auto cant, but a cant, just a very mellow cant. The shock absorption and just the overall ride of the Union Atlas is great. Yes, there's more butterability with the Contact Pro, and what's the new one they have?
Strata.
The Strata and the T-Rice have the mini disc. I like this full-size disc because I can pretty much get my stance right for any board. But the mini disc is pretty good too. But also, some people, if you really rip, if you're really just, you know, powerhouse, big, super big, strong rider, you know, like kind of more upper ripper to pro, mini discs, I've heard complaints, put too much pressure on the board in one place, the inserts of the board, and can actually pull like the discs out. So if you're like that super ripper, then it's this and the Force. And this is just basically a souped up Union Force with just response-wise, they're very similar. It's a shade less than the T-Rice. It's, you know, kind of about there with the Force, maybe a touch better. But what I really like about this is just all the bells and whistles. It's just like a nice, more comfortable, more playful Force. But there you have it. That's the Union Atlas. It's just, I've ridden this probably more than any other binding out there.
Great binding.
I've ridden this almost exclusively this season, along with a smattering of the Contact Pro and occasionally Burton. But the reflex disc versus this disc makes it so much easier for me to get my stance width right, and that's why I'm often doing this. And it also dials out much better to your boot. In terms of flex underfoot, butterability, the Cartel wins. But response and customization to your boot, this wins.
Definitely.
So there you have it. Atlas.